So I want to take a deeper dive and really understand where this passion came from. Um,
Yeah,
where did this journey start? Like, why did you decide to go down this road? So I could
yeah.
rewind back to that, to then.
Well, that's a loaded question. And I, even as I think of it now, it's been such a road, and it's challenging to think of how do I encapsulate my life, in kind of a summary. And in its essence, I was at the intersection of tragedy and trauma. Um, Not to sound dramatic, but it kind of was. And so back in 2006, a dear family member of mine, a younger cousin, was murdered in front of his mother's home here. And I'm a Prince George's County native in Maryland. And so he was murdered in their home neighborhood just out in front of her house. And that was really devastating for our family. For anyone who has lost a family member, particularly a young person. And I say young person at the time, he was just a few years younger than me. So anyone who's lost a family member in that way knows how devastating it is. All loss is hard, but violence is like, it's unacceptable, really, truly. So he was murdered, and I just felt angry and frustrated. And I felt like somebody had to do something about the violence epidemic that is the number one leading cause of death among African American youth. And I heard somebody say, if you say someone should do something about a thing, maybe that someone is you. And so I guess without really planning it and, doing all the things, I took that really literally, and decided then to start on paper the organization, right? And I had sort of idealistic goals about what the journey would be like. And well, of course, it's going to be easy because I'm just helping people. And I had no idea what I was doing. And some days I still don't, honestly, but my heart was there. And so the origin of our organization was as a youth development sort of violence crisis intervention mission. However, the way that we transitioned our way to a mission that was more centric in wellness is that I got sick. I was young at the time, young enough that I should not have been so ill, and having that experience that I was extremely sick. I went to 6 different doctors and got 10 different diagnoses, and none of them were accurate. And I was just really hopeless. And I feel like the turning point in that situation for me of the trauma of sort of being mishandled in the medical industry, like, of course I was depressed because I was sick all the time. Like, it's not normal to feel ill all the time, right? And so, but that didn't mean that I was mentally ill. I was just experiencing sort of the consequences of what was happening and desperate for answers. And so I think the caveat for that was a question, actually. So the last doctor I went to, and I have respect for doctors, let me disclaim that. I understand that there are people with great hearts and things, but we're all humans and we are all flawed. And so a doctor, when I went to him and said, this was probably doctor number 6, it might have been 7, and I ruled it out, but I went to him and said, what can I do? My blood pressure was off the chart. I didn't fit the profile of someone that should have that issue. I was young, I was thin, relatively healthy lifestyle. And he asked me why I was single. Like I said, what can I do to improve my health? And he responded to me and said, why are you single? And I was devastated. I left the doctor's office that day just really not knowing what to do. I literally thought I may die because I wasn't able to eat at the time. My blood pressure was high, and they scare you to death when that is the case. And So I was really disheartened that I had gone to this system that I trusted to help me, and I left with a prescription and dating advice, right? When what I wanted was practical steps of things because I was a willing patient to do what I could do to help myself. And so that was the tragedy and trauma, but God intervened as he does, and he decided to turn that to triumph. And so what happened is I went on a journey of indignation, honestly, in a way, of learning and exploring and seeing, because I knew I wasn't the only person that was experiencing these things. I went on a journey to research. And what I started finding is, as I said before, in the African American community with ages 10 to 24, that violence is the leading cause of death. And what's sad is that the second leading cause is suicide, right? So that's what the statistics said. But then what I decided to do, and through the help of lovely, wonderful volunteers all these years, helping me to continue, what we were able to do is say, all right, that's what the statistics says, but we're going to start a program where we give the opportunity to young people to have something to hope for. Because that young man who murdered my cousin, he could not have been well. He could not have been healthy, right? It's impossible for him to have done that and he'd been healthy. And so what we have decided to do, what I decided to do at the time, was to turn that into something good, with our youth camps and our youth enrichment. The statistics about adults says that 1 in 5 adults is going to face a mental health issue each year. Like, that's a pretty high percentage. I think that's about 20% if I'm doing the math right, but that's a high percentage. But when I looked at my own situation and how food contributed to it, oh, by the way, my issues were from undiagnosed food allergies. The doctors tested me and scanned me for everything except the food. And so I have a personal passion with our food access program because I think it's important to have access to healthy food, yes, but also to be informed and aware of what's happening to our food. So I feel like I could talk about that all day, honestly, but it's like, just do some research. Like, the fact that now, presently, 1 in 13 children have food allergies, and that has gone up 50% in the last 10 years. Why is that? When you look at the facts that eating ultra processed food is a factor in a 25% increase in dementia. Why is that? Like, when you're talking about older population, there's so many statistics out here that show us, for example, the red dyes in foods that are linked to ADHD in children, right? So the drinks, the candy, the meat. And so I'm not saying this to be like fear mongering about the food, but I feel very passionate, and that's why God put the vision in my heart for our Good News Gardens, right? Which you all have supported, and which is going to empower people to know where their food is coming from. I tell people all the time, if you want to know more about food, if you want to know more about the economy, the state of the world, make friends with a local farmer. Like, they are so full of information. That's like a blessing to go to. So anyway, without parking there, because I could talk about the food all day long, I'm just very passionate. Our last program, our affordable housing program, our latest, I should say, not last, but our latest program, that one really hit close to home, not to, no pun intended. But when I looked around, I have a small staff who is currently now working in a non-paid status, just because we lack the funding, but they are still supporting. When I looked at our staff of 4, each of us is living in a multi-generational household, mostly due to economic factors, right? So there's some caregiving in the mix, there's some economy, there's some job loss, there's a variety of things in the mix of why we are in that space. But that made me step back and take a look and say, if all of us are experiencing this, surely it's got to be a problem at large, right? And so I did a little digging, and I saw that I think it was 17 million renters. 17 million, that's a lot. That's 25% of all renters are in danger. They're considered very low income and they're in danger of being unhoused, right? Or the fact that 1 in 20 homeowners is in danger of defaulting on their mortgage. So that means if you know 20 people, one of them is likely in danger of losing their home. 20 people who are purchasing their home, mortgaging their home. So I look at my own life, I look at my staff's life, and then I look around and say, there's got to be a solution. And so I believe that God has given me a vision there that I'm going to try my best to bring into the world, you know, to help people. Because if you don't have a safe place, I don't know if I said this already, but if you don't have a safe place to lay your head, all of the rest of the things are kind of like a non-starter. So yeah, so that's how I ended up here. I mean, there's more I could say, but that's the gist.